We have Ashmeet, who is the Director of Engineering at SiriusXM, who is a partner with Women Who Code. We really appreciate their dedication to walking the walk, talking the talk, and encouraging and empowering women within the tech industry for sure. Ashmeet is a full-time working mom of 2 kids. In her free time, she likes to spend time with her family. She does lots of cooking and biking as well. She is also a dog mom, and happy news, it's actually her dog's 2nd birthday today. So happy birthday to her puppers. Ashmeet is a firm believer of career growth for individual contributors and would like to share some of her ideas with you today. I know that we're all going to enjoy your talk and we're going to learn a lot together. So excited to have you.
Thanks, Christina. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Christina, for the warm welcome. My name is Ashmeet Kaur. I'm a director here at SiriusXM. Hopefully, my introduction is actually going to introduce my deck as well. I started my career as a software developer, and I've progressed into a leadership role. During this time, I have adapted to a lot of things that I've personally felt that they've helped me in progression of my career. And I thought, what not a great time to actually share all this with you. And, hopefully they can help you out in one way or the other way. With that being said, I actually want to start off with let's do a small icebreaker first. Actually, what I'd like you all to let's take just 30 seconds and say, what was the last time that you actually challenged yourself with? That's all my session about, actually, right? So how do you empower yourself to grow? How do you adapt to new things? I'm going to be sharing some of my personal experience during my slideshow, actually. But before I get to that, I want to see, what all have you taken as a challenge in the last few months? Holding my manager accountable, learning AWS, new roles within company. All right, thank you very much. Thank you. I really appreciate that. With that, I'm actually gonna kick off some of the topics that I'm talking about today. Please know during this deck, I'll be talking about some of the, as I said, some of the guidelines, some of the things that have helped me in the past. The first one that I want to talk about is, goals. Goal setting. We often do goal setting, and how important goal setting is. I want to emphasize a little bit upon how to do the proper goal setting. Right? You can set a goal for yourself. I can set any goal for myself. I just want to wake up at 7 a.m. this morning. That's a goal. In your technology growth, right? There's one thing that I've felt that has helped me a lot: setting myself as a SMART goal. It says by itself, it's specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound, right? Why is it important to stick to something like that framework? It's your goal has to be specific, right? So it's either to your career growth, or it's something that you're doing for your organization, right? You cannot set a goal for yourself that you don't have proper resources for. You cannot set a goal for yourself that few days down the time that you send, you cannot measure. You cannot understand that was I actually successful in my goal or not. That's where this following the SMART goal pattern has helped me personally a lot. And I'm hoping that this following something like that will actually help you as well. Magnify, my favorite topic, actually. I'm sure if there are some of my team members sitting here, this is probably not the first time that they're hearing from me, because I've consistently enforced this always. What does Magnify means? It's, in simple terms, it's zoom out, not zoom in. Let's take a let's take a simple example, right? Somebody as a very junior developer, when you join the technology industry, your goals are very small. your your thinking is limited to fix my bugs, finish my stories, and call it a day. Right. I remember when I was my first job was actually at Citigroup. And anytime I would be asked to do something, the first thing I would go is Stack Overflow. That used to be my favorite tool back then. And obviously, no kids at that time, no responsibilities, and all my day was actually committed to work. I was very new in my career. And I would come back home, spend extra time, finish my work. The next day morning, I'll go to my work really excited. Yeah, I feel accomplished. I did something. Um, and then while on the same hand, I'm sitting in the meetings, I feel like, no, I'm not. I'm still not getting involved into what I need to do. I wanted to take my career in my hands. And very soon I realized that, this is not it. It's not just about coding. It's not just about sitting heads down. It's actually about understanding what's around me. And one way that I started doing that was actually by taking Magnify as my approach. When we were all back in office, my whiteboard was always filled with ideas. Anytime that I have been asked to do something, my first thing would be that I would go to my whiteboard. Now that we're all remote, my work table is all full of paper and pen and everywhere. And I usually start off with something like building blocks, something on my hand. I literally pick it up as, what's the raw material? What do I need to start building something like that? Very slowly, I start to, how you build the Legos. You start to build things and start to make sense that, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I still don't stop myself there. I still start to think, what's next? What I'm doing? Yes, one thing is it's helping me accomplish my task on my hand. But how is it helping the organization that I'm working for? How is it helping the teams that I'm working for? That started to give me a much bigger picture of things. So bigger thing was, I was not focusing myself on my task. I was looking at the bigger picture. I was learning a lot more things by looking at outside of what my purview was. And I feel like, over the time, this has helped me in a way that I know a lot more things outside of, just what my roles and responsibilities are. Um, that's what has helped me get into a place where, I'm more open-minded to learning things, and I'm learning a lot more than what I could be if I'm just doing my hands down coding. I'm gonna skip to my next slide. And befriend challenges. Who doesn't love challenges, right? That's where I started from at first. Um, Believe me or not, it's a big thing. It sounds a very small thing as a word, but it takes guts to take on a challenge and to actually be able to commit yourself to take that challenge and to come out as a success from that challenge. It's Personally, I feel the the times that you're not taking challenges, it's not a time for your growth. You're not pushing yourself enough to be able to grow in your career. The time that you take challenges is when you start to learn a little bit more. You know how you start teaching your kids something, right? So they start to learn something from ABC, and then you start challenging them with the small three-word letters, and that's how challenges are. That's challenges for those kids, and then I'm talking about challenges for grown-ups as people in industry. Uh, Personally, me, if I wanted to actually answer for myself, what was the challenge that I took for myself? It's the first time that I'm doing a public speaking on women who code, and I remember a few weeks back, my boss in my one-on-one, he said, I think it'll be a great thing for you to do. This is the next possible perfect thing that you should be representing this kind of knowledge on women who code. And I took about 30 seconds and I thought, I haven't done for myself and I don't know what am I gonna do. But then me knowing myself personally that I do love to take challenges, and I in the same call I said yes, yeah, I'd love to do that, something like that. And that was the challenge that I took. And since then, I've been preparing for things. I wanted to make sure that the time that I'm taking out of your calendar is worth as well. I've been making notes and thinking about how best can I make use of this time, and that's the challenge that I took for myself. Moving on from challenges, the next thing that I want to talk about is have your say, or speak up, convince others with your ideas. Don't just sit in the meeting. If you are walking into a meeting where you are not contributing your best, you're not doing anything good to yourself. It's important to speak up for yourself when you have proper data supporting your knowledge, supporting your the statements that you're making. But when you do feel comfortable, you do know what you're doing, it's very important to speak up. And the reason I think it's important for me to call that out, me personally, my first language is not English. And when it was the time for me to start sitting in meetings, it was difficult for me. Am I saying the right thing? What's the other person, what's going to be the next question for me? And it took some time for me to get used to be able to start convincing my messages across people. And yes, I made some blunders in the beginning, and everybody does, but I got over it. And now that I'm on the other side of that, I feel like it's very important for people to actually say their thoughts and speak up for themselves. The other thing that I actually want to call out here is, we all work in the software industry, right? There are numerous domains that we work on in software industries. I bet every domain has expert people sitting, and every domain also has people who are still thriving for that knowledge, right? Nobody is really perfect. Don't be worried about thinking, is this a stupid question? My Something that has worked for me and I'd like to share is, accept your ignorance, and walk into the meeting with that accepting. And that's the best way for you to take full advantage of that meeting. Don't pretend, or don't assume that people know you know everything. Don't think that what are people going to think that when you say that, oh, I don't know this. There's nothing worse that you can do to yourself by just sitting in that meeting. Instead, I'm going to emphasize again, accept your ignorance, walk into the meeting with the proper questions that you think you need to understand, do your homework for things that you need to understand, but then speak up for yourself. I don't know what you're talking about. Let's take a step back. Let's try to understand what is that. That's the right way for you to, I'm sorry. That is the right way for you to start learning things, start contributing a little bit more. When you set expectations right for yourself, that's where you also have a better stage to ask the right questions. People know what's the expectation that we have. I'm gonna switch over to the next one. Paid forward, often called as, buddy program, mentor or mentee. It's it's some companies have this actually as a program, at least mine does. Some companies it's not as an official program, but there's a benefit in doing a mentor and a mentee program. I'd like to talk a little bit about, how do you get a mentor and a mentee when you don't have a program like that? And I'd also like to talk about what are the general benefits of being a mentor or being a mentee. Being a mentee is, simple. I'm sure some of you are thinking, why am I even talking about? Yes, it's somebody new joining the company. Being a mentee, you have a mentor. What best thing can happen to you? Somebody is taking the same steps with you. Somebody is teaching you on your every step. Hey, this is the culture of the company. This is how you set up your workspace, and blah blah blah, whatnot. Right? You have a safe space that you can go to. You can have open-ended conversations with that person. You can go and talk to that person and understand the technology that's being used, understand the framework that's being used, and so you're meeting that person on the recurring time, and basically you have all the help that you need. um, what's the bigger benefit of being a mentor, actually? uh, I personally feel being a mentor actually gets you into a place where you can learn how to convince somebody with the ideas that you have. I'm sorry if it sounds a bit mean right now, but think about it. You're a mentor to somebody. You're working with somebody in a very one-on-one scale. You're teaching that person something. Um, just very small thing is culture of your company, right? Or as I said, setting up workspace or giving knowledge transfer on some feature that you're working on. You walk into that meeting, obviously doing your homework. You're cross checking for yourself, for your facts, and you're walking into that meeting and you need to go and convince that person with an idea that you have to solve for a feature. That's a big thing. Convincing somebody with the ideas that you have, the problems that you foresee, it's not a small thing in technology. Convincing a group of people, it's not at all a small thing. It takes a lot of data. It takes a lot of effort to actually convince people to follow a certain direction. And I feel like, at least me, when I became a mentor for the first time, that was the biggest advantage that I'm gonna be mean here, but that was the biggest advantage that I walked out of that mentorship. The other thing that I want to talk about, as part of being a mentor and mentee is are you ready to take the feedback that you'll get, right? So it's you're working as a team, and that also comes with taking feedback and taking praise, and it's how open are you to take that feedback, right? Is the feedback you're getting, is that constructive feedback? While praise is important for you to get that fuel going to do the right work, the constructive feedback actually gets you to make take that feedback, make changes to your course, and do better. That's both of the things, they keep you going. A very small example that, that something that happened to me when a week back I was sitting with my daughters, and they were doing their homework, and it's like something you're thinking about it, and this thing, the woman who code thing, was going in my head, that okay, what else can I do? And I had an idea, okay, maybe I should talk about something like that. And I walked up to my work desk to write it. And my daughters asked me, Mom, what's going on? And I was telling them, yeah, I'm doing something like that. I'm pretty exciting for that. And obviously, they're 6 and 9. They had questions. What is it you're talking about? Who's going to be listening to you? Are you going to go somewhere? Are you going to be away for a few days? And, all these questions. And then all of a sudden, my 6-year-old jumps to me and she says, Mom, I think I know you're going to do great. That was the praise that I was, hoping for. Yes, that gave me a fuel to keep going. But I didn't stop right there. I scheduled meeting with few folks in my company. Public speaking is their job, and there are things that I had to learn. There were things that I had to make changes to my deck. That was the feedback that I was looking for. That was the feedback that I had to use to hopefully be able to make a better presentation, right? To make a better use of this 45 minutes. That's what I wanted to emphasize. It's there are times when we take feedback as a negative thing, that, oh, somebody is giving me a feedback, am I not doing the right thing? What I'd suggest is, start taking feedback with a positive thinking. Feedback is good. Somebody giving you a feedback wants you to do good. Somebody not giving you a feedback probably doesn't care as much. Negative feedback not necessarily is bad. There is always things hidden in there where you can definitely find things that'll help you improve in your career. So before I move on to the next slide, be a little bit more open to taking feedback. Now, one other thing, while I was talking about it, it's so hard to take feedback these days, right? We're all sitting home. What is the right way to take feedback, actually? One thing that I have adopted, and I'm hoping that that'll help you. Um, I have often reached out to people who I trust will help me in guiding my career. I've often reached out to them, setting aside a time. Hey, this is my time where I need feedback from you for so and so things. Again, please refer back to my SMART goals. That's a goal that I set for myself. I'm totally making up this example. I said I would set up meeting like, okay, I think I'm ready to take additional responsibilities. You tell me, what is it that I need to do to make that goal, right? There's an equal contribution that's needed from me and my leadership. And setting up that specific time to take that feedback helps you keep that conversation focused on, yes, this is the time when I have to spend this time with Ashmeet to give her a feedback to meet so and so goal, right? um, that's where it has helped me, while sitting home. We're all on working remote right now. We've started to go a little bit in person, but that is one way that has certainly helped me, even while sitting home, and taking feedback, and seeing a continuous improvement and growth in the way things I do. Know and leverage your toolkit. It's sounds simple. Sounds a bit simple, actually. We all use these different IDs, and we're so used to doing things in a certain way, and also the lives are very busy right now, and we don't get to spend enough time in actually learning outside of that. um, there's our IDs are also growing, by the way, right? They're improving a lot. Lately, I was looking at something, and the ID itself tells me, "Hey, that's a big giant blob of code. Why don't you break it down?" Right? That's how smart our IDs are these days. And the message that I want to convey here is, know your IDs, know your toolkits. There's always a shortcut that could do something for you in half the time that you're spending doing something. That could be anything, right? Even your Google Docs, there are shortcuts. Even your IDEs for your coding practices that you use, there are IDEs to use for that. Use your IDs, take advantage of those. The other thing that I want to add here is, as I mentioned that a little bit ago, that as junior developers, we're so used to writing big giant blob of codes. At least that's how I used to write when I was very junior. No logging, no exception handling, no sense of, how am I writing my code. Remember, my goal was just to finish my work and call it a day. Yes, I finished these many tickets in the day. I used to find that as a victory. What happens when you're writing something like that, right? It's not modular. People who are looking at your code, they can't understand. um, and it's not you can't really debug that kind of code, right? That's where even the toolkits have actually started to help us. One way you could really train yourself by to be more modular is, even if you write that big giant blob of code, take time and break that open. Break it into smaller pieces, and then take a look. Then arrange your code and see what kind of sense does it make. You'll realize over the time, your brain will start to work in a way that your code will become more modular. You'll just get a habit of writing the code in such a way. Staying connected. I actually wanna open up to the comments for 30 more seconds, and see if what is the biggest challenge that you as a person you have felt, by sitting remote, by working remotely, um, for the last 3 years that we have been sitting. Nice. Making sure I keep a good routine, staying motivated, missing the social aspect, networking. That is one thing that I'm touching upon. Hard to develop relationships, colleagues, feeling disconnected from colleagues. Yes, absolutely. All right. Um, let's talk about it actually. Not being as efficient as I can be throughout the day because I have more time at the end of the day. Ending my work day low. Not having as much opportunity to walk around. Stopping work. All right. I love all of that. While I love working from home, the best thing that I love is I'm working in my PJs. That's how I am right now, even. But the biggest aspect of not being in the office that I actually miss is, not being able to see people personally. Not being able to build that relationship. It's very important. Back when we were all in the office, there used to be a tea time. Everybody in the office would get together, and not necessarily we're just chatting. we'll chat, we'll talk about things. And while it was a good break, but it was a good catch up. You would know a lot of people at the company. Next time you need something, you can easily walk up to that person. Hey, I need some help, XYZ, right? How difficult it is right now when we're all working from home, and you need to reach out to somebody for something, and then you're like, I don't know that person. How do I start it? And all that things, right? Something that I have adapted in the last few years of working from home, and how to keep that fuel going and how to keep that relationship building. um, One thing, obviously, no brainer, I reach out to people, set up some one-on-ones. There's a new hire who I know I will be interacting a lot with that person. Obviously, it's easy to set up that one-on-one and reach out to that person and have a chat over the coffee, right? That's one thing that we could do. The other thing that I often do is, when you're sitting in the bigger meetings, and you're either doing your project planning, or you're trying to solve for things or things like that. There are always action items of that meeting. I often reach out to people, to the host of the meeting, to the person who is taking, action items. Hey, would you mind me helping out with anything? Can I take that X, Y, and Z action item from your plate off? And I'd love to help. Now, what does that do to me as a contributor, right? So one, I build that relationship. I'll be building more by working with that person more closely. Two, I started to get more involved in some of the things that we were gonna do as a team, and I have that more direct impact, more direct relationship with that team that I got. Um, I've done this quite a lot of times in the past, and I'm gonna be very honest. This is something that has helped me a lot, in building relationships while we're working from home, in learning what else is going on in the company and what else is going on in my organization. So I'd love for you all to try some of these things, and see if it's any helpful for you all. That was the end of my presentation. As I introduced myself in the beginning, I work for SiriusXM. Here's the QR code. I would love for you to come work with us. At the bottom of the screen, you'll also find my LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you all. Before I hand it over for Q&A, which I'm really looking forward to, I would actually like to conclude by saying, um, I hope some of this is helpful to you. I hope some of this you will actually adapt and get better use out of it. Keep going, keep your fuel going. And, the best thing I want to actually end with is, adapt your ignorance, learn from there. That's the best thing that you can do to yourself as your career growth. Thank you all.
Have loved so much of what you've shared today. I feel like not only was this informative, but it was motivational, and it's been a lot of fun to be able to see the interaction, the comments. I think your talk has really resonated with a lot of people. Just curious, as other people are posting their questions in the chat here, how did you arrive at a place where you were okay to take feedback? I know that that's a personal growth journey for a lot of us to accept feedback and to be able to grow from it. So I'd love to hear about your journey to accept feedback.
You're probably going to laugh a lot, but I'm a mom. Kids are very honest. Kids
That's
are
true.
more honest than I would love them to be. And I'm actually going to throw something that happened to me a few years back. I walked out in a dress, and my daughter comes to me and she says, "Mom, this doesn't look nice. Go change."
Goodness.
So I realized at that time, if I can take that feedback and I can actually work on that,
There you
I
go.
could actually take feedback from other places. And as I said, Christina, while I was talking through that slide, it's not easy. I'm very honest. It's not easy to take that feedback. But once you realize the importance of feedback that somebody gave you, that's when you start realizing that, okay, somebody gave me a feedback. I need to take a seat back and I actually need to think through it. What was the feedback? What made somebody give me that feedback? And what do I need to do to change that, to take
Mm,
that feedback, right? That's where I started to take some feedback, and that has certainly helped me.
absolutely. Yes, as a fellow mom, I can connect with you on that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and I'd love to hear about your career journey if you wouldn't mind sharing, because it sounds like so many people really resonated with you, your personality, your passion. So I'd love to hear how you came to work at SiriusXM.
Sure, sure. I'd love to be very honest to here as well, actually. I joined SiriusXM as a software developer, and I was heads down coding, all about Java and whatnot. Over the time, my manager, I still remember I was actually driving work in the morning, and he calls me and he says, Ashmeet, you've been doing some management work for the last few weeks slash months. Would you be interested in actually taking this up as your next growth aspect? And I was not at all expecting that because I was actually covering up for somebody. And I realized that I was actually enjoying it.
Hmm.
Unknowingly, I was enjoying it. I was enjoying managing deliverables. I was enjoying being responsible for the deliverables. And I was soon after that, I actually set that as my goal, honestly. And I got into a place where I became a manager of a team. It was a small team at that time. uh, since then, I've never looked back. I've actually enjoyed the people management. I've enjoyed um, uh, tackling different problems. Like I've enjoyed every aspect of it. Currently, I'm at a director level, and I actually lead multiple teams in SiriusXM. So yeah.
That's really great. I love to hear that somebody recognized that talent in you and then kept building you up, and you were up for the challenge too.
Yes.
So that's
Yes. Yes.
wonderful.
See, that took a lot of feedback and
For sure.
doing that over and over thing going again. So yeah.
Yeah. It looks like we have a question in the comments here. Kimberly is saying that they would love to hear your thoughts about people that want to stay as an individual contributor and pass on the management track.
There are a lot of people. I have personally seen a lot of people who don't want to go to the management side of the business. And first of all, I actually want to call out that uh, that's a good thing that you realize as a human being, because looking at management side, it's always very lucrative. Yeah, he's a
Hmm.
manager. It's a big thing to call out that yes, he's a manager, he leads people, and so and so. But if you're not a people manager, yes, it's good thing that you accept that. The one way that I think you can keep yourself going as an individual contributor. Good thing with nowadays, there are all these companies. They have a different career growth path for individual contributors versus
Hmm.
there's a different career growth path for people managers as such, right? So
Right.
back when I was an individual contributor, there were no titles like a staff or a principal. It would
Hmm.
go till senior software and it would actually end right there. Now, at this time in the industry, principal is actually sitting next to your director most of the times, right? That's where the title hierarchy is. Um, One way to keep going is, never stop learning, as I said. One thing that I would also recommend is don't restrict yourself to just your area of focus. That's what gives you a broader vision to what your
Hmm.
organization is trying to do. Think of outside of what you are doing, outside of what other teams are doing, how what you're doing, how is that impacting other teams. That's one way for you to continue growing as an IC. And obviously, the other thing that goes without being said is obviously keep yourself most updated with the technology, and that's
Hmm.
that's a no more. I'm probably not going to touch upon that.
Well, and it looks like we have a follow-up question about that. Is a tech lead considered an individual contributor? And if so, what is your advice for growing into a tech lead role? This person has done some tech lead work in a previous role and looking forward to doing more in the next role.
Sure. Actually, it's the answer is pretty much similar to what I talked about. Especially when you think about a tech lead role. Let's take a moment and actually, talk about what's the difference between somebody sitting at a senior and a tech lead. I'm sure every person that you talk to has a different opinion about it. I'm going to talk about what my opinion is, at least, and I'm hoping I'm not conflicting with a whole lot of people here. But as a senior, when you see yourself, I think a person can walk out happy by saying, I'm writing good code, I'm doing good production support, I'm writing high performance code, I'm being a mentor to some junior developers. um, you start to think a little bit more what's above my senior responsibilities, right?
Mm.
The place where I think the tech leads start to come in is start driving some of that direction for the team, start driving some of that direction for architecture of the services, start driving some of the conversations for your cross service collaborations that you're going to do. That's where I personally feel the tech leads should start to think about. And one way to actually get into that is, again, I'm sorry I'm being very repetitive here, but is not just consider your work as your work. Think outside of that.
Mm.
The
Yep.
best way for you to collaborate and contribute as a tech lead is when you know what's going around you, not just what's going within your team. um, you as a tech lead can do better when you know how is the other service that's working that you're going to be integrating with, so that you can put that design in place. You can put an architecture of your service in place to be able to make that a successful service, actually.
That's great. And that communication and that collaboration is only going to improve your systems, your processes, everything. So I love that.
Absolutely.
Um, there was a question earlier on in the chat that I want to bring up. It was while you were talking about not being afraid to share your opinion, to share your questions during conversations. And the question was specifically about breaking up the flow that may be happening in a meeting. So if you're getting into the real technical aspects of a project, let's say, but then you have a question, how do you bring that up? How do you balance keeping the flow happening, but also making sure that you're contributing?
um, I am personally a person who don't hesitate interrupting if I have a question, but that's just me personally. Um, but again, I'm actually gonna answer this question a little bit differently.
Okay.
When you walk into the meeting, going back to what I was saying a few slides back, if you walk into the meeting accepting your ignorance and set up a ground for the conversation that you're having, When people sitting across the table, they know what's the level of conversation that we are having. So take a very, I'm going to take actually a very small example. We were sitting in a product brief a few weeks back, and unfortunately, I had not had the time to read out the product brief before walking into the meeting, and I was sitting dumb. I thought to myself, do I actually want to keep this going and, not be able to understand what we're talking about? I took an opportunity where 5 minutes, 10 minutes into the meeting, they were still continuing to talk about that same thing. And I said, okay, can I please take a step back and let's try to understand what is this that even term that you're referring to? That gave the product a sense, yes, there's no homework done. And yes, I moved the progress of the meeting a bit back, but at least for the folks sitting in the meeting, we were actually able to talk from the get-go that, what is it that you're trying to talk and what is it that you're trying to convey.
Mm.
To be able to find that fine time in that meeting where you can interject your question in a way that you can get answers to yourself is actually really important to learn. One thing was, I could have sat back and say, it's okay, it's my mistake, I'll go back, I'll read through it. That's not what I chose to do actually that day. I said it's going to take 2 more minutes extra. Let me at least understand and see, how can we make this time better. It's yeah. I mean, I'll take this personally that I could have done better, but to make better use, sometimes you have to do things like that.
Absolutely. Well, and I think the important thing to remember there is you may not be the only person who has a question in a conversation. I know that I have.
Sorry,
I've
I lost you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can.
Oh, okay. I know that I have gotten courage from hearing other people bring up questions in meetings. So by doing that, you may be spurring somebody else on to be able to speak up as well and use their voice.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Yes.
Well, Ashmeet, I wanted to thank you so much for having a really thoughtful conversation with us, having a really personal conversation with us, and I think one that a lot of people have connected with and felt a lot of encouragement from. So I want to appreciate I appreciate the time and effort that you put into creating this wonderful talk and spending your afternoon with us. You are very appreciated.
Thank you for having me.